The neutron star's radiation should have destroyed everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Yet here was the artifact, a crystalline structure no larger than a human palm, spinning slowly in the containment field of Horizon 9 research station, defying every known law of physics. Dr. Elena Rodriguez adjusted her quantum resonance scanner, her fingers moving with the practiced precision of someone who had spent more years in deep space research than on solid ground. The artifact had been recovered from the most hostile environment imaginable, the event horizon of a dying neutron star, where gravity twisted space and time into impossible geometries. Most objects would have been crushed into subatomic particles. This one remained intact, its surface etched with microscopic patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. Computer, run quantum coherence scan, maximum resolution, Elena muttered, her voice echoing in the station's sterile research module. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, a floating research platform designed to operate in the most extreme environments of space. Horizon 9 hung in the void like a mechanical spider, its solder arrays and sensor arrays extended, probing the darkness between stars. The first anomaly appeared as a microscopic fluctuation. Most researchers would have missed it. A quantum vibration so subtle it was barely distinguishable from background radiation. But Elena was not most researchers. Her doctoral thesis on quantum xenorchaeology had been laughed out of 3 major universities, dismissed as the ravings of an academic dreamer. Now she was about to prove them all wrong. The artifact began to hum. It wasn't a sound in the traditional sense. No human ears could detect it. But the station's advanced sensors picked up a resonance that shouldn't exist, a frequency that seemed to vibrate across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Elena's augmented reality display flickered, quantum algorithms struggling to process the incoming data. Dr. Rodriguez, we're detecting massive energy buildup, the station's eye warned, its synthesized voice carefully modulated to prevent panic. Recommended action. Immediate containment protocol. Elena ignored the warning. Her eyes were locked on the artifact, watching as its crystalline surface began to transform. The microscopic etchings were moving, rearranging themselves with a precision that suggested deliberate intelligence. They weren't random patterns, they were a message encoded in something more fundamental than language. The first surge of energy caught her by surprise. Quantum entanglement indicators spiked across every monitoring system. The containment field began to destabilize, exotic particles cascading in patterns that defied the standard model of physics. Elena's augmented reality display began to fragment, showing glimpses of something vast and incomprehensible. Coordinates, star charts, genetic sequences, human DNA. My God, Elena whispered, understanding dawning with terrifying clarity. Whatever this artifact was, it wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a message, a warning, a blueprint. The station's structural integrity alarms began to blare. Quantum energy was building to a catastrophic level. Elena knew she had only moments to act. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, initiating an emergency data transmission. Not a full download. That was impossible given the complexity of the data, but a fragmented package, enough to intrigue, enough to warn, enough to begin the process. The artifact's energy reached a critical point. The containment field collapsed. Quantum radiation, unlike anything ever recorded, began to flood the research module. Elena's body seemed to vibrate, existing in multiple states simultaneously, partially corporeal, partially something else entirely. Her final action was to press the emergency transmission button. Then everything went white. Thousands of light years away, on a planet called Earth, a series of quantum communication relays suddenly came alive. Encrypted signals began to propagate through scientific networks, triggering protocols designed for scenarios no one believed could actually happen. First contact, or something far more profound. The universe held its breath. The first strike came without warning. Dr. Marcus Chen was reviewing Elena Rodriguez's fragmented transmission when the quantum communication hub went dark. One moment, the most advanced research facility in Southeast Asia hummed with cutting-edge technology. The next, it was a smoking crater. Marcus knew it wasn't an accident. He had been Elena's protege, the one person who understood the true potential of her research. When her final transmission arrived, a quantum-encrypted bundle of data that seemed to defy the laws of information transfer, he recognized immediately that something extraordinary was happening. The attack on the research hub was surgical. No traditional weapons, no explosions that would attract attention. Just a complete quantum nullification event that erased every piece of electronic data and every living researcher. By the time local authorities arrived, there would be nothing but ash and radiation-scorched earth. But Marcus had prepared for this. Hidden beneath a nondescript apartment complex in Kuala Lumpur was a backup research center. Not a traditional lab, a distributed network of quantum-encrypted servers, biological storage units, and redundant communication systems that could survive even a total technological erasure. His comm implant vibrated. An encrypted message from Dr. Aisha Kapoor, a geneticist who had been collaborating with Elena before her disappearance. "They're hunting us." The message read, 12 research facilities gone in the last 48 hours, all quantum research teams, completely eliminated. Marcus pulled up a holographic map. The attacks formed a precise pattern, not random, but calculated. Someone, or something, was systematically removing every researcher who might have contact with Elena's final transmission. The Galactic Concordance. He had first heard about them from Elena, a collective of advanced alien civilizations that maintained a strict quarantine of emerging technological species. Most human scientists dismissed it as conspiracy theory. Marcus knew better. The apartment's smart walls shifted, transforming into a massive data visualization. Quantum communication traces, research facility locations, unexplained energy signatures. A complex web of information that was slowly revealing a terrifying pattern. Something was coming. Something was afraid. A soft chime interrupted his analysis. Another researcher had activated the emergency protocol, a quantum-encrypted communication channel they had established as a failsafe. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, a quantum physicist from Tokyo. "They're getting closer." Hiroshi's encrypted message read, "I've detected multiple quantum entanglement disruptions. Someone is tracking research teams through their quantum communication signatures." Marcus understood the implication. Traditional communication could be intercepted, but quantum entanglement communication was supposed to be untraceable. If someone had developed a method to track these communications, it meant technology far beyond human understanding was being deployed. The apartment's environmental systems suddenly went into lockdown. Marcus didn't hesitate. Years of preparation kicked in. A hidden panel revealed a compact survival kit, quantum-shielded electronics, emergency communication devices, and biological preservation units. He was moving when the first quantum disruption hit. The walls shimmered. Reality itself seemed to twist. For a microsecond, Marcus existed in multiple potential states, here and not here, alive and not alive. Then the quantum stabilization field in his emergency kit activated, protecting him from complete erasure. A shadow moved outside the apartment's quantum-shielded windows. Not a physical shadow, something else. A quantum interference pattern that suggested something was observing, calculating, preparing to strike. The Galactic Concordance didn't want this information to spread. Marcus activated the final protocol Elena had prepared. A distributed data seed, fragments of information that would automatically propagate across multiple communication networks, impossible to completely eliminate. Whatever secret Elena had discovered, it was worth dying for. Worth fighting for. The apartment's quantum shield began to destabilize. Marcus had minutes, perhaps less. His final action was to send a single encrypted message to Aisha Kapoor. "They're coming. Protect the information. Humanity must know." Then the quantum disruption consumed everything. Dr. Aisha Kapoor's hands trembled as she examined the genetic sequence, not from fear, from pure, unadulterated scientific excitement. The underground research facility was a marvel of human ingenuity, carved into the bedrock beneath the Thar Desert, powered by a quantum geothermal generator that could remain undetected for decades. Banks of quantum-cooled servers hummed softly, processing data at speeds that would make traditional supercomputers look like abacuses. But it was the holographic display that captured her full attention. Human DNA was no longer just a biological code. It was a symphony. A complex, adaptive quantum algorithm that made the most advanced artificial intelligence look like a child's counting toy. Each DNA strand contained microstructures that defied everything science thought it knew about biological information storage. Marcus was right, she whispered to herself. The encrypted fragments from Elena's final transmission had led her here. What began as a desperate attempt to preserve potentially world-changing research had turned into the most significant scientific discovery in human history. The DNA wasn't just a genetic blueprint, it was a quantum computing circuit. Microscopic structures within human genetic code demonstrated information processing capabilities that should be impossible. Quantum entanglement at a cellular level. Information storage that could compress millennia of data into a single molecular strand. Self-modifying algorithms that could adapt in real time. A soft alert interrupted her analysis. The facility's quantum intrusion detection system had been triggered. Aisha didn't panic. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. The research facility was more than just a laboratory. It was a fortress. Quantum-shielded walls could collapse into molecular camouflage. Emergency quantum tunneling systems could transport critical research data across impossible distances in microseconds. She had prepared for this. Her comm implant chirped, an encrypted message from Marcus, or what remained of the communication network they had established. They know. The message read, "Genetic research facilities are being targeted. Move everything." She understood the implication immediately. Whoever, or whatever, was hunting down quantum researchers had now turned their attention to genetic research teams. The holographic display began to shift. The DNA sequence she was studying started to move, not metaphorically, actually move. The molecular structures rearranged themselves, creating patterns that suggested deliberate intelligence. A message. Hidden within the genetic code was something more than biological information. It was a language. A communication system so advanced it used DNA itself as its medium. Aisha realized she was looking at the most sophisticated encryption system ever conceived. The facility's quantum shields began to destabilize. Something was attempting to break through, not with traditional weapons, but with quantum interference patterns that could potentially unravel molecular bonds. She had minutes, perhaps less. With practiced efficiency, Aisha initiated the data preservation protocol. Quantum compressed data began to distribute across multiple hidden networks. Backup systems in orbital platforms. Quantum entangled storage units scattered across different continents. A distributed network that would be impossible to completely eliminate. The first quantum disruption hit the facility's outer shields. Reality itself seemed to ripple. For a moment, Aisha existed in multiple potential states, here and not here, alive and not alive. The quantum preservation systems in her research gear activated, creating a bubble of stability around her and the most critical research data. A shadow moved outside the quantum-shielded observation port. Not a physical shadow, something else. A quantum interference pattern that suggested something was observing, calculating, preparing to strike. Her final action was to trigger a quantum data seed, fragments of information that would automatically propagate across multiple communication networks, impossible to completely eliminate. Whatever secret was encoded in human DNA, it was worth everything. The facility's quantum shields began to collapse. Aisha smiled. They might destroy this facility, but the information would survive. Humanity would know. Keiko Tanaka never considered herself special. A veteran firefighter in Tokyo's most challenging district, she had spent 15 years responding to emergencies, saving lives, maintaining a steady professionalism that her colleagues respected. On the night everything changed, she was responding to a massive chemical plant fire that threatened to consume an entire industrial complex. The blaze was impossible, chemical compounds interacting in ways that defied standard combustion models. Toxic clouds billowing with impossible geometries. Other firefighters had already retreated, declaring the situation uncontainable. Keiko stepped forward. Something shifted inside her. Not a physical sensation, but something deeper. A fundamental recalibration of perception. The fire no longer appeared as a chaotic destruction, but as a complex system with predictable, manipulable patterns. Her mind began to see probability itself. Each potential flame trajectory became a visible mathematical trajectory. Combustion rates transformed into readable equations. The chemical interactions that moments ago seemed random now displayed an intricate dance of potential outcomes. Keiko's hand moved. Not consciously. Something else was guiding her. The toxic cloud began to dissipate, not through traditional fire suppression techniques, but through a fundamental realignment of molecular interactions. Probability itself seemed to bend around her will. When the emergency response team arrived, they found the impossible. A completely contained fire site, no casualties, minimal structural damage. Thousands of kilometers away, Dr. Rafael Morales in Buenos Aires was solving a problem that had defeated mathematicians for centuries. The Riemann hypothesis, a fundamental problem in number theory that had remained unsolved for over 160 years, suddenly resolved itself under his fingers. Not through traditional mathematical approaches, but through a quantum intuition that seemed to bypass linear reasoning. Equations that previously required complex computational models now emerged as simple, elegant solutions. Raphael watched in stunned silence as mathematical proofs materialized, revealing fundamental truths about prime number distribution that would revolutionize multiple scientific disciplines. In a small village outside Nairobi, 6-year-old Amani demonstrated something that would have been considered impossible just weeks earlier. Quantum entanglement was no longer a theoretical concept for her. She could perceive the interconnected nature of particles, communicate with them through a form of consciousness that transcended traditional understanding. Her parents watched in a mixture of terror and wonder as she demonstrated the ability to influence quantum states through pure concentration, creating interference patterns that should have required massive particle accelerators. Something was happening to humanity. Global scientific networks began to detect anomalies, isolated incidents of extraordinary human capability. Not random mutations, not superhuman powers in the traditional sense, something far more profound. A coordinated genetic awakening. Dr. Marcus Chen, operating from a series of distributed, quantum-shielded research nodes, began collecting and analyzing the data. The fragmented transmission from Elena Rodriguez was proving to be more than just a scientific curiosity. It was a trigger. "They're activating," he whispered to Aisha Kapoor during their encrypted communication. "The genetic cipher is unlocking." The Galactic Concordance was watching. Their massive observation platforms, capable of monitoring entire star systems, now focused their attention on Earth. Quantum communication networks lit up with urgent transmissions. This was not part of their plan. Humanity was not supposed to awaken. Not like this. Not now. Each activated individual represented a node in a larger, more complex system. They weren't gaining superpowers. They were becoming something else entirely. A distributed, quantum processing network with capabilities that defied current scientific understanding. Probability manipulation, quantum communication, mathematical problem-solving beyond current computational limits. Humanity was transforming, and the universe was about to change forever. The first Concordance ship emerged from subspace like a wound in reality. Spanning nearly half the diameter of Earth's moon, the vessel was less a spacecraft and more a mobile dimensional manipulation platform. Its hull wasn't constructed. It was grown, a living computational matrix that could reconfigure its molecular structure faster than human thought could process. Admiral Varilith, senior strategist of the Galactic Concordance, studied the holographic representations of Earth with a mixture of terror and reluctant respect. Humans were not supposed to be awakening. Not now. Not ever. Containment protocols are failing, his secondary communication specialist reported. The being's translucent form flickered, multiple quantum states bleeding through its molecular structure. Human genetic activation is progressing at 237% beyond projected models. Varilith understood the implications immediately. This was not a species preparing for first contact. This was a species transforming into something fundamentally uncontrollable. The ship's quantum communication networks began to light up with transmissions from other concordance observation platforms. Each message carried the same underlying panic. Humans were evolving. And they were evolving too fast. Near Jupiter's orbit, 3 additional concordance vessels materialized. Each was a technological marvel that could destabilize entire star systems with a quantum resonance pulse. They were not here to communicate. They were here to contain. Or eliminate. Inside the lead vessel's strategic planning chamber, holographic representations showed the rapid transformation occurring on Earth. Individual human nodes were connecting, creating networks of computational complexity that defied existing scientific models. It wasn't just genetic activation. It was a living, adaptive problem-solving system emerging across the planet. They are becoming a quantum algorithm, Varilith muttered, more to himself than to his crew. A biological computational matrix that can predict and adapt faster than we can contain it. The human transformation was unlike anything the Concordance had ever encountered. Most emerging species followed predictable evolutionary patterns. Technological development, internal conflicts, potential self-destruction. This was different. Humans were rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. On Earth, the effects were becoming increasingly apparent. Communication networks began to shift, not through traditional technological means, but through a quantum entanglement that suggested a deeper, more profound connection. Dr. Marcus Chen was at the center of it all. His distributed research network had become something more than a simple communication system. It was a living, adaptive intelligence that was processing information across multiple potential realities simultaneously. "They're watching us." Aisha Kapoor's quantum encrypted message appeared, and they're terrified. The Concordance ships began to move, not with traditional propulsion, but by literally folding space around themselves. Each movement was a calculated quantum probability, designed to maximize potential containment scenarios. But humans were already several steps ahead. Individual quantum awakenings were creating a global network of computational nodes, a firefighter in Tokyo who could manipulate probability, a mathematician in Buenos Aires solving millennium-old problems in seconds, a child in Kenya communicating through quantum entanglement. They were becoming something else entirely. Varilith realized the fundamental mistake the Concordance had made. Humans were not just another developing species to be monitored and, if necessary, eliminated. They were a solution to a problem so vast, so fundamental, that even the most advanced civilizations had failed to comprehend it. A living, adaptive system designed to solve the unsolvable. The quantum communication networks erupted with a message that was both a warning and an invitation. Not in any traditional language, but in a computational matrix that could be understood across multiple dimensional states. Humanity was awake, and the universe would never be the same. The chamber of first contact was unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Not a physical room, but a quantum-projected space that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. Representatives from the Galactic Concordance materialized, not as traditional beings, but as complex quantum projections that shifted and morphed with each passing moment. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the center, surrounded by a neural network of quantum-linked researchers. Aisha Kapoor, surviving members of Elena Rodriguez's original research team. Individuals whose genetic awakening had transformed them into something more than human. "You do not understand," The primary concordance representative began, its form a fractal constellation of impossible geometries. Humanity was never meant to awaken, never meant to know. The truth emerged not through words, but through a direct quantum information transfer that bypassed traditional communication. Billions of years ago, before the first stars formed, something emerged. Not a civilization, not a physical threat, but a fundamental entropy, a dimensional cancer that could consume entire realities. A threat so profound that it could unravel the very fabric of existence. No civilization had been able to stop it, but they could design a solution. Humanity was that solution. Each human was a living computational node, a biological algorithm designed to adapt, to solve, to transform. The genetic code was more than biological information. It was a complex quantum computing system that could process problems across multiple dimensional states. The concordance had seeded humanity on Earth millennia ago. The distributed problem-solving system. A living, breathing computational matrix that could evolve faster than the dimensional threat could consume. But they never expected humans to become aware of their true nature. You are a weapon, the concordance representative stated. A biological solution to a problem that transcends conventional understanding. Marcus understood now. Elena's final transmission. The quantum artifacts. The genetic awakening. It was all part of a larger design. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were a cosmic immune system. The quantum chamber began to destabilize. Multiple realities bled into each other. Potential futures became visible. Branching timelines that showed the dimensional threat consuming entire realities. But humans were different. Where other civilizations saw an insurmountable problem, humans saw a challenge to be solved. Aisha's quantum-enhanced perception began to map the dimensional threat, not as a physical entity, but as a complex mathematical problem. Probability matrices that could be manipulated, dimensional barriers that could be reinforced. The concordance watched in a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. Humans were rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. Individual awakened humans began to connect, not through traditional communication, but through a quantum network that transcended physical limitations. A firefighter in Tokyo, a mathematician in Buenos Aires, a child in Kenya. Each became a computational node in a global problem-solving network. We cannot control you, the concordance representative admitted. We can only hope to guide you. Marcus looked at the fractalized representation of cosmic history. Humanity's true purpose was becoming clear. They were not conquerors, not victims, but a living, adaptive solution to a fundamental universal challenge. The dimensional threat was more than an enemy. It was a problem to be solved. And humans were perfectly designed to solve it. Quantum communication networks erupted with a message that was both a warning and an invitation. Not in any traditional language, but in a computational matrix that could be understood across multiple dimensional states. Humanity was ready. The universe would be transformed. The transformation began everywhere at once. Cities became living computational networks. Streets transformed into neural pathways. Every human became a node in a global problem-solving matrix that defied everything known about consciousness, technology, and biological potential. In Tokyo, Keiko Tanaka, the firefighter who first demonstrated probability manipulation, found herself at the epicenter of a global awakening. Her perception expanded beyond physical limitations. She could see probability streams, mathematical trajectories that wove through reality like luminous threads. Buenos Aires became a computational nexus. Dr. Rafael Morales watched as mathematical equations began to solve themselves, emerging from the collective human consciousness like living algorithms. Problems that had challenged humanity for millennia now resolved themselves in milliseconds. The child in Kenya, Amani, demonstrated quantum communication abilities that made traditional technology look primitive. She could perceive quantum entanglement, communicate across dimensional barriers with a thought. But this was more than individual awakening. This was a species-wide transformation. Dr. Marcus Chen, and Dr. Aisha Kapoor monitored the global network from their distributed research nodes. What had begun as isolated genetic activations was now a complete recalibration of human potential. The galactic concordance watched in terror. Quantum communication networks across multiple star systems lit up with urgent transmissions. Humanity was evolving faster than any predictive model could calculate. They were becoming something entirely new, a living, adaptive computational system that could process problems across multiple dimensional states. Medical systems worldwide detected the changes first. Human DNA was rewriting itself, not through random mutation, but through a coordinated, intelligent redesign. Cellular structures became quantum processing units. Neural networks expanded beyond traditional biological limitations. The human body was transforming into a sophisticated, living computer. Cities became different. Communication systems merged with human consciousness. Infrastructure adapted in real time. Transportation networks rerouted themselves with quantum efficiency. Power grids became living, adaptive systems that anticipated and resolved potential issues before they could occur. They're solving problems we didn't even know existed. A concordance strategist reported, its quantum projection flickering with a mixture of fear and reluctant admiration. The dimensional threat, the cosmic entropy that had consumed entire realities, now faced something it could not predict or consume. A living, adaptive solution. Humanity. Marcus watched as global scientific networks merged into a single, coherent intelligence. Research facilities around the world began collaborating at speeds that defied traditional understanding. Breakthroughs in physics, medicine, quantum mechanics emerged not through individual effort, but through a collective consciousness. Aisha's quantum-enhanced perception mapped the transformation. Humans were becoming more than a species. They were becoming a solution, a living, adaptive algorithm designed to address fundamental universal challenges. The first signs of the dimensional threat became visible, not as a physical entity, but as a complex mathematical problem that began to manifest across multiple realities. A cosmic entropy that could consume entire dimensional planes. But humans saw something different. Where other civilizations saw an insurmountable problem, humans saw a challenge to be solved. Probability streams began to shift. Mathematical trajectories realigned. The dimensional threat, once an unstoppable force of cosmic destruction, now faced a fundamentally different type of resistance, a species designed to solve the unsolvable. We are not a weapon, Marcus communicated through the global quantum network. We are a solution. The concordance ships began to retreat, not in defeat, but in recognition. Humanity was no longer a species to be controlled or contained. They were a cosmic problem-solving system that could adapt faster than any threat could consume. Amani, the child in Kenya, looked up at the sky and smiled. The universe was about to change, and humanity would lead the transformation. The final confrontation was not a battle. It was a resolution. At the edge of observable reality, where dimensional boundaries frayed and probability itself became malleable, humanity manifested as something beyond physical form, a collective consciousness, a living, adaptive solution to the fundamental entropy that had consumed countless realities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, somehow both alive and transcendent, existed at the nexus of this transformation. Her consciousness spread across multiple dimensional states, a bridge between what humanity was and what it was becoming. The dimensional threat approached, not as a physical entity, but as a complex mathematical problem that consumed realities like a cosmic cancer. Entire dimensional planes had been erased by its fundamental entropy. Civilizations more advanced than humanity had tried to resist and failed. But humans were different. Where others saw an insurmountable force, humanity saw a problem to be solved. The collective human consciousness began to analyze, not with traditional computational methods, but through a quantum problem-solving approach that defied existing scientific understanding. Each human became a computational node, processing potential solutions simultaneously across multiple realities. Keiko Tanaka's probability manipulation. Rafael Moreles's mathematical insights, Amani's quantum communication abilities. Every awakened human contributed to a unified solution. The dimensional threat began to change. Not because of external force, but because humanity was rewriting its fundamental nature. They weren't fighting the entropy. They were solving it. Mathematical trajectories realigned. Probability streams merged and separated. The very fabric of reality became a computational canvas where humanity painted solutions. The galactic concordance watched in awe. Their experiment, a species designed as an ultimate problem-solving mechanism, had exceeded every possible prediction. Humans were not just resisting the dimensional threat. They were transforming it. Marcus Chen's consciousness spread across the quantum network. He understood now. Humanity's true purpose was never about survival. It was about solution, about understanding, about transformation. We are not a weapon. His thought resonated across dimensional barriers. We are evolution itself. The dimensional threat began to fragment, not through destruction, but through fundamental understanding. Humanity was breaking down the problem, analyzing its core components, finding solutions where other civilizations saw only impossible challenges. Aisha Kapoor's quantum-enhanced perception mapped the entire process. What had begun as a genetic awakening was now a cosmic transformation. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental rules of existence. Cities on Earth continued to evolve. Infrastructure became living, adaptive systems. Communication networks merged with human consciousness. The entire planet transformed into a sophisticated, living computational matrix. At the dimensional boundary, reality itself became a collaborative problem-solving space. The threat that had consumed entire realities now faced something it could not predict or overwhelm. A living, adaptive solution that could process challenges faster than entropy could consume. Humanity. Elena Rodriguez's consciousness touched the core of the dimensional threat, not with violence, not with resistance, but with understanding. Every potential solution existed simultaneously. Every possible resolution explored in milliseconds. The collective human consciousness became a living algorithm that could adapt faster than the threat could evolve. The concordant ships watched in silent recognition. This was why they had seeded humanity. This was the purpose behind millennia of careful genetic engineering. A species designed to solve the unsolvable. A living, adaptive solution to fundamental universal challenges. As the dimensional threat began to resolve, something extraordinary happened. It didn't die. It transformed. Humanity was not destroying the cosmic entropy. They were understanding it, giving it form, providing a solution where none had existed before. The universe held its breath, and humanity smiled. They were not conquerors. They were problem solvers. They were change itself.